I used to live in a quaint little house on the outskirts of town. It was the kind of place where you could hear the birds chirping in the morning and see the stars clearly at night. It was perfect for someone like me who valued peace and quiet. But that tranquility was shattered in the most terrifying way, turning my safe haven into a prison of fear and paranoia. I first noticed something strange one evening while I was making dinner. As I chopped vegetables by the kitchen window, I got the eerie feeling that I was being watched. I glanced outside, expecting to see one of the neighborhood kids playing around, but there was no one there. Shrugging it off, I continued cooking, but the feeling lingered. A few days later, I was reading in my living room when I heard a rustling noise outside. I paused, listening intently. It was probably just an animal, I told myself. We had plenty of raccoons and stray cats around. But then I heard it again, closer this time. I put my book down and moved cautiously to the window. Peeking through the blinds, I saw nothing but darkness and the faint outlines of trees swaying in the wind. That night, I couldn't shake the unease. Every creak of the house and rustle outside seemed amplified. I barely slept, and when I did, my dreams were plagued with faceless figures lurking just out of sight. Over the next week, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings, constantly checking the windows and doors, double-locking everything before bed. One evening, as I was taking out the trash, I saw a shadow dart behind the shed at the edge of my yard. My heart raced as I dropped the trash bag and ran back inside, locking the door behind me. I called the police, but when they arrived, there was no sign of anyone. They suggested it was probably just my imagination, but I knew what I saw. Still, with no evidence, there wasn't much they could do. Determined not to let fear control me, I installed motion-activated lights around the house and set up a security camera by the front door. For a while, this seemed to help. The lights would occasionally flicker on, but when I checked the footage, there was never anyone there. Just the empty yard and the swaying trees. Then, one night, I woke up to the sound of the motion lights clicking on. I grabbed my phone and opened the security camera app. My heart pounded as I watched the live feed. At first, I saw nothing but the empty front yard. Then, just as I was about to close the app, a figure stepped into view. They were standing at the edge of the yard, just outside the range of the camera's night vision. I couldn't make out any details, but it was unmistakably a person. I called the police again, but by the time they arrived, the figure was gone. They assured me they would increase patrols in the area, but I could see the skepticism in their eyes. To them, I was just a paranoid woman living alone, jumping at shadows. Days turned into weeks, and the figure continued to appear, always just out of clear view, always at night. My fear turned into obsession. I started staying up all night, watching the live feed, hoping to catch a better glimpse of my stalker. My work began to suffer, and my friends grew concerned. They urged me to move, to leave the house and start fresh somewhere else. But I was determined to catch whoever was tormenting me. One night, as I sat by the window with a cup of coffee, I noticed something strange. The motion lights had stopped turning on. I checked the app, but the camera feed was blank. Panic surged through me as I realized the power to the lights and camera had been cut. I ran to the front door and peered outside. The yard was pitch black. Suddenly, a loud knock echoed through the house. My blood ran cold as I slowly turned towards the front door. There, silhouetted against the frosted glass, was the outline of a person. They knocked again, louder this time. I wanted to run, to hide, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. Gathering all my courage, I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. As I spoke to the operator, the knocking grew more insistent, almost frantic. I backed away from the door, clutching the phone like a lifeline. The police arrived quickly, but once again, the figure was gone. They found the cut wires to the lights and camera, confirming that someone had been there. This time, they took me seriously. They promised to keep a closer watch on the area and suggested I stay with a friend for a while. I took their advice and stayed with my friend Sarah for a few days. It was a relief to be away from the house, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I knew I couldn't avoid it forever. So after a week, I returned home, determined to reclaim my life. For a while, things seemed to go back to normal. The police patrols increased, and the motion lights and camera were repaired. I even started sleeping better, thinking the nightmare was finally over. But then, one night, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard a noise from the backyard. It was a soft, scraping sound, like something being dragged across the ground. I grabbed a flashlight and cautiously stepped outside. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but the empty yard. Just as I was about to go back inside, I saw it. A small, black box sitting on the ground near the shed. My heart raced as I approached it, every nerve on edge. I bent down and opened the box. Inside was a single Polaroid photograph. It was a picture of me, standing at the window, taken from the backyard. Terror gripped me as I realized that my stalker had been inside the yard, close enough to take this picture. I ran back inside, locking every door and window, and called the police again. They arrived within minutes, but there was no sign of the intruder. I couldn't stay there any longer. I packed a bag and left that night, moving in with Sarah until I could figure out what to do next. The police continued to investigate, but they never found the person who had been stalking me. Even now, as I sit here writing this, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside sends a shiver down my spine. I've moved to a new city, changed my phone number, and tried to start over. But the fear remains. The memory of that faceless figure, lurking just out of sight, haunts me. And sometimes, in the dead of night, I wake up and swear I can hear that same soft, scraping sound, like something being dragged across the ground. And I wonder, is it really over? Or is my watcher still out there, waiting for the right moment to strike again?